All right, maybe you watched it on WRAL and WRAL Plus, but if not, we'll give you a quick rundown of what happened as Michael Malone was introduced as the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. I'm Chris Lee. That's Brian Murphy. Pat Welter is on vacation right now, and he missed a good one because there was a lot of Carolina royalty in the building tonight, starting with Roy Williams, and then also a lot of former players, some current players who are in the transfer portal. It was interesting to see who came out to see head coach Michael Malone.
Yeah, lots of people turned out. Bill Belichick was here.
Yeah.
Lenny Bangert was here. Mike Shaw, who's the head coach of the volleyball team, was here, and he played an important role in helping Michael Malone get here.
Probably the lead recruiter.
Right, because Bridget Malone, who is Michael Malone's daughter, plays on the UNC volleyball team, and it was through that relationship Michael Malone pointed out a couple times that he was fired from the Denver Nuggets and thus had a lot of time on his hands last year. And because his daughter plays volleyball here, he and his wife spent a lot of time in Chapel Hill. And part of that time was spent coming to basketball practices, getting to know Steve Newmark and Bubba Cunningham through his relationship with Pat Sullivan. He talked about Hubert Davis. I mean, for a guy who's an outsider to the Carolina family, he sure knows a lot about Carolina, sure has spent a lot of time around the program.
For sure. And then just to stay right there on the Pat Sullivan thing, he brought up Pat Sullivan's name a lot today during his press conference and talked about their time going back when he grew up in New Jersey. Of course, Coach Malone grew up in Queens, New York, and they knew each other from their basketball time as kids. And so this is a lifelong connection that ends up benefiting him, right? Like he said that, he had some time on his hands, came down to visit his daughter, and he's like, hey, can I come watch practice? I've got nothing to do. I just got fired back in April and ends up becoming a head coach out of it, months later.
Yeah, I thought the timing was very interesting. Steve Newmark said the first person he called when he started this job search was Michael Malone. I thought it was a call to be like, hey, I've got to find a new head coach. Who should I be talking to? Who should I be looking at? What kind of characteristics should I be looking at? But as Steve Newmark explained to me, no, it was a conversation about interviewing Michael Malone to be the next head coach.
Yeah.
And after that conversation, it sounds like Michael Malone said, thank you, but look, I'm going back to the NBA. And there were subsequent calls. Michael Malone said every time he said no, he felt a little pang of regret.
Yeah.
And so that kept the door open. And as North Carolina went through this process of talking to other coaches, including Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, they eventually circled back to Michael Malone on Easter Sunday. Steve Newmark flying from Indianapolis in the Final Four out to Colorado to convince Michael Malone to take this job, and was a pretty good salesman because Michael Malone is now the head coach at UNC.
No didn't mean no in that case, right? No meant maybe, and he just didn't know it at the time. And he talked about how Steve Newmark was so persistent with him this entire time, like didn't take that no and just say, okay, well, I tried. He kept trying. And also it was important for him to mention that his wife Jocelyn was also with it as well. And I thought it was interesting him bringing up this idea too. He knows that now coming here as a former NBA head coach, as a former NBA champion, as the head coach of the men's basketball team here at UNC Chapel Hill, he's going to take the spotlight. He was worried about the spotlight being taken away from his daughter, who you said, of course, was, the player on the volleyball team here. I thought that was a very interesting part of the press conference as well.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the most interesting parts, right? He talked about how his daughter convinced him to come, and she said, yes, I want you to take this job. But he was worried about, now that puts her in a fishbowl. She's no longer just Bridget Malone, volleyball player for the UNC Tar Heels, who are having a volleyball resurgence. She's been a player. They went to the NCAA tournament this year. That goes all away. Now she's Michael Malone's daughter. Michael Malone is the head coach of the team. I thought that was a really interesting look at their family dynamics and how he asked her repeatedly whether she wanted him to take the job because it's going to change her life in ways that she probably can't even comprehend right now.
Yeah. I also thought it was just interesting going in, hearing him talk more and more about his love for Carolina as an outsider. I wanted to ask him a question in particular, and it came to my mind. I had a different question in mind when I raised my hand, but as he was talking, I realized people are, of course, going to judge him based off of if he can put banners up and if he can win ACC tournament, that type of thing. But he's really going to be judged what's going to happen every first weekend of February and every first weekend of March, and potentially a third time in ACC tournament the very next week. And that's going against the Duke Blue Devils, right? And, there's an argument that could be put out there that maybe if John Shire hadn't been doing so well over in Durham, Hubert Davis might still be here. And I thought it was very interesting with his answer that he's ready for that. And he was excited when he watched Seth Trimble hit that corner three for Carolina to take the lead for the very first time of the game and win the game. Him and his wife were jumping up and down, and his daughter FaceTimes him as she's walking out of this building. I thought that was very special and important part of this press conference as well.
You know, as great as winning an NBA championship is, and he led the Nuggets to an NBA championship in 2023, pointed out that only one coach, Larry Brown, has ever won an NCAA championship and an NBA championship. That is the task now that Michael Malone has. But as great as the NBA is and as great as winning a championship is, like, those moments don't really happen in the NBA.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic can have a triple-double and hit a game-winning shot, and your daughter's probably not FaceTiming you from the game.
Yeah.
Because that's just what college basketball means, and that's what it means here in the Triangle. That's what it means at probably only a handful of places around the country. And so I thought that was important, and I think that's something that he learned. He talked about Hubert Davis a lot in this press conference, that Hubert Davis taught him that you need to treat this place with respect for all the people that have come before you. And I think we saw that. Roy Williams was here, other former players. I saw Dick Bedore, the longtime athletic director, was here. So that Carolina family came out for Michael Malone. And I think part of the reason he has this job is because of his respect sort of for that history, for that tradition. He said that he wrote Dean Smith asking for a job one time.
Yeah.
That didn't come up in the press conference, but it's come up in other places. He also talked about how Hubert invited him in and let him come down and sit on the floor and talk to the team, things that are normally reserved for people in the family. So I do think that connection maybe made Michael Malone more palatable, maybe than some other coaches who have zero connection to the university.
Yeah, for sure. And somebody who really loves this place, understands what this place means. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes, because right now, as we're talking, the transfer portal has opened about 18 hours ago, 17 hours ago, whatever it was from
More
when
than
we're talking.
1,000 players in it already.
It's crazy. Right now, I kind of think it's more newsworthy for players who actually stay, but there's work to do. There's right now 3 members of the North Carolina basketball team who plays, significant minutes, who right now are not in the transfer portal as we're talking. What do you think needs to happen for him to try to retain certain guys like maybe a Derek Dixon? And then look into the portal for other guys. There's a Flory Badunga who's out there, right? There's other big-time names from other big-time programs. What is ahead of him in the next few days to make sure that this team is successful next season?
Yeah, well, this is going to come down to money, right? A lot of this is going to come down to money. I thought in the contract, it was interesting. Guaranteed $6.75 million in revenue sharing throughout the term of his contract. Carolina put about $7 million into men's basketball from revenue sharing this year. But the revenue sharing cap keeps going up, so you'd think that the money would keep going up. Henry Vesar, I think, is the most important player. Can they get Henry Vesar back? And he's going to cost a lot of money because he has the option to go to the pros. He's also, if he enters the transfer portal, would be one of the most coveted big men in the portal. So can they bring him back? Can they bring Dixon back? Can they build a team in Mike Malone's first year, because the patience is gone?
Yeah.
Right? This is not a sport where you bring in a bunch of freshmen and think 3 or 4 years down the line, we're going to be really good. When you're a new coach and you're getting the kind of money that Michael Malone's getting, and you have the kind of resume that he has, they want to see wins right away. And so how he does in this transfer portal is going to be key. He said he's keeping people like Jim Tanner, Sean May, others around. He didn't say permanently, but they'll be around to help with this transition at least.
Yeah.
Guys who have been, very familiar with college basketball, know what's happening in the portal. And Sean May was one of the first people to greet him when he came off the plane.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see just how quickly he starts to make his mark in the portal, because the portal really comes down to money and relationships.
For sure.
Carolina should have some money. Do they have enough relationships to land some of those people? And are players, 18 to 22-year-olds, excited about playing for Michael Malone? That's really an unknown question at the moment.
And that's probably why you have a guy like May, you have a guy like Sullivan, who are still sticking around, Jim Tanner, because maybe they have those relationships that's already there. And then it'll also be big if they can still, retain their 5 stars from high school who have said that they will come here to Carolina. I want to get down to this question, though. We talked about Duke. We talked about the wins and trying to win immediately. What do you think is a failure here at Carolina for Michael Malone next year? What is the baseline he needs to achieve in his first season?
Well, I'm not going to steal Will Wade's Red Reckoning, but I mean,
it's a blue wave.
Yeah, what Will Wade talked about was we're going to be in the top half of the ACC,
yeah,
and we're going to be in the NCAA tournament consistently. I think you need to raise that bar a little bit at Carolina. you're going to be in the top 4 of the ACC, and you're going to be top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament. I mean, Hubert Davis made the NCAA tournament. He made the tournament, 4 out of 5 years. They bounced in the first round twice. They made it to the Sweet 16 once, and they made it to the Final Four and the national championship game once. And that wasn't good enough. So the bar is not losing in the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. The bar is Sweet 16s and Elite Eights and having a chance to be one of those teams that are cutting down the nets. And so to me, I don't, failure, success is hard in that first year, but I think he was brought in to raise the level of this team back to that consistency of top 4 seeds in the ACC tournament, top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament, and playing deep into March, Sweet 16s, Elite Eights, Final Fours, having a chance to win the national championship. That's the bar. I mean, when you get rid of Hubert Davis for making 4 tournaments in 5 years, but not getting out of the first round the last 2 years, well, that's the bar. The bar is to play in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. And I think Michael Malone knows that. He's certainly being paid well.
For sure.
He knows that those are the expectations. And I think Chancellor Lee Roberts knows those are the expectations. And Steve Newmark, the incoming AD, they've established that those are the expectations for college basketball in Chapel Hill.
My answer to that is, out just from where I look at it, where I'm sitting, is that you just need to be a little bit better than Hubert Davis your first year. And that's tough because Hubert Davis technically had a pretty good year, right? Like I can't remember the exact record, but they were 24-11 or something like that to end the season. So if you can get to 25 wins, if you can get to the round of 32, I think that and win, let's say, one more game in the ACC tournament, which means making it to the semifinals, right? Of the ACC tournament, which means you make it to Friday. I think that is good enough for the first season. That's a good introduction. It gives you a little bit of cushion because there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve, maybe not in the actual X's and O's, but also maybe just how you coach and relate to young college players, and also how you deal with the transfer portal, things like that. After that, the race is off to the races. Like you have to get close to 30 wins. You're going to have to get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and get to a Final Four at least one time within the first 3-4 years.
Yeah. And I think, fortunately or unfortunately at Carolina, they've tried this route before. They hired a professional coach to coach a very accomplished professional coach, maybe the most accomplished professional coach, to coach their football team. And they went 4-8 in the first season. Now, basketball is different. Michael Malone is 54, not 73. But, he had the benefit of having one of the very best players in the NBA, help him lead that to that championship in Nikola Jokic, much like Bill Belichick had Tom Brady. And there will always be questions about, can he do it without that guy? If you look at his numbers in the NBA, his regular season winning percentage, not very good without Nikola Jokic. I'm not saying he can't coach. I'm not saying they're going to end up 4-8 or the equivalent of 4-8 for a basketball team. But I am saying that, there is very recent history in Chapel Hill of a coach coming in with a great resume and saying all the right things at the press conference and then not delivering on that. Now, basketball, it's a little easier. You just need a couple of players and you've got yourself a team.
Yeah.
And obviously Carolina's committed to that. And Carolina has basketball history where they don't have football history. But all that being said, there is an example right down the street of bringing in a pro coach, paying him an awful lot of money and not getting the results. And I think this has got to work for the administrators. This has got to work. They've staked a lot now on the football hire and the basketball hire.
18 million plus a year just for 2 coaches here on campus, 2 of the highest paid people in the state of North Carolina as far as public funds are concerned. So
yeah, I mean, I was building with some people. You got to raise even more money now, right? This is an athletic department that has really put itself out there and said, we're going to hire the very best coaches that we think we can get. And now that's got to pay off. They're very good in all these Olympic sports. And I'm not downplaying all those sports, but football and men's basketball pay the bills. And they're giving a lot of money. Michael Malone is on a 6-year, $50 million contract.
Oof.
That goes up to about $9 million in its last year. He's got an $8 million buyout. He's getting $4 million for his assistant coaches, which is a huge jump.
It is.
And puts you at the very top of college basketball, men's college basketball. And so they're pouring the resources in. This place needs to be full and jumping and have a chance to beat Duke and take care of business against NC State and beat the very best teams that come in here.
I would meet him at the airport too if that type of money was on the line. Make sure you go to WRAL.com. All the reporting that we had from the entire day is right there. Of course, we'll have more covering Michael Malone as this continues. I'm sure you'll see our faces a lot more, myself and Brian Murphy, and then also Pat Walter when he's coming back. But make sure you stay tuned right here to WRAL as we have more from the journey of Michael Malone as the new head coach of the UNC Tar Heels.